step into the vibrant world of daily English conversations for intermediate learners. In this exciting episode titled Politics and Government, we delve into political systems and government structures. Imagine confidently discussing current events, policies, and political ideologies. This podcast, with real conversations, interactive exercises, and practical tips, will spark your curiosity and enhance your understanding. Are you ready to navigate the complex world of politics in English? Tune in and let your curiosity guide you to new discoveries. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fun English Conversations for Elementary Learners. I'm Sophia, and I'm here with my co-host Mason. How are you doing today, Mason?
Hey, Sophia. I'm doing great and really excited to talk about today's topic. How about you?
I'm fantastic, thank you. Today, we're going to dive into something very interesting and important, understanding the basic concepts of politics and government. This might sound complicated, but we'll break it down in a fun and easy way. Ready to get started, Mason?
Absolutely, Sophia. So let's begin with the basics. What exactly is politics?
Great question, Mason. Politics is all about how decisions are made in groups, especially in countries. It's about how we organize ourselves and make rules to live by. Imagine you and your friends deciding what game to play or what movie to watch. That's a small example of politics.
Exactly, Sophia, and government is the system or group of people who make and enforce those decisions and rules. It's like the leadership of a country, similar to how school has a principal and teachers who help run it smoothly.
That's right, Mason. Governments come in different forms. For example, there are democracies, where people vote for their leaders, and monarchies, where a king or queen is in charge. There are also dictatorships, where one person has a lot of power.
Let's talk a bit about democracy, Sophia. In a democracy, citizens have the power to elect their leaders through voting. It's like choosing a class representative in school. Everyone gets a say in who they think should lead and make important decisions.
Exactly, voting is a key part of democracy. It allows people to have a voice in their government. In many countries, people vote for different leaders, like the president, members of parliament, or local officials.
And it's not just about electing leaders. In a democracy, citizens also have rights and responsibilities. They have the right to express their opinions, but they also have the responsibility to follow the laws and contribute to their community.
Yes, Mason, another important concept is the separation of powers. This means that the government is divided into different branches, each with its own responsibilities. Typically, there are three branches: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial.
Let's break those down a bit. The executive branch is headed by the president or prime minister and is responsible for enforcing laws. The legislative branch, like a parliament or Congress, makes the laws. And the judicial branch, which includes the courts, interprets the laws and makes sure they're followed correctly.
Absolutely, Mason. This separation of powers helps to ensure that no single branch becomes too powerful. It's like having checks and balances in a school where teachers, students, and administrators all have different roles but work together to create a good learning environment.
That's a great way to put it, Sophia. Now, let's talk about how these concepts apply to everyday life. For instance, have you ever wondered why we have traffic lights and rules for driving?
Yes, those rules are created by the government to keep everyone safe on the roads. It's a simple example of how government decisions impact our daily lives.
Exactly, and it's not just traffic rules. Governments also decide on important things like education policies, healthcare, and how to protect the environment. All these decisions affect how we live.
Speaking of decisions, let's talk about how laws are made. In a democracy, it usually starts with an idea, which then becomes a bill. This bill is discussed and voted on by the legislative branch. If it passes, it goes to the executive branch to be signed into law.
Right, and sometimes citizens can be involved in this process by voting on certain issues directly through something called a referendum. It's like having a say in whether your school should build a new playground.
That's a great example, Mason. So, understanding politics and government is really about understanding how we make decisions as a community and how those decisions shape our world.
Absolutely, Sophia, and remember, learning about politics and government helps us become informed citizens. It empowers us to participate in our communities and make a difference.
Exactly. So, whether it's voting, following laws, or simply being aware of what's happening in the world, understanding these basic concepts is key.
Now, we're going to talk about the key functions and branches of government. It's a really important subject and will make it fun and easy to understand.
Absolutely, Mason. So, let's get started. Last time, we introduced the basic concepts of politics and government. Today, we'll dive deeper into the three main branches of government: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branches. Let's start with the executive branch. Mason, can you tell us what the executive branch does?
Sure, Sophia. The executive branch is responsible for enforcing the laws that are made by the legislative branch. In many countries, the head of the executive branch is the president or prime minister. They're like the captain of a ship, steering the government and making sure everything runs smoothly.
That's a great analogy, Mason. The executive branch includes not only the president or prime minister, but also other important officials like ministers and secretaries who help manage different areas such as education, health, and defense. They work together to implement policies and run the day-to-day affairs of the country.
Exactly, Sophia, and the president or prime minister often has a team of advisors and a cabinet. These are people who specialize in different fields and give advice on important decisions. For example, there might be a minister of health who advises on medical and health-related issues.
That's right, Mason. Now, let's move on to the legislative branch. This branch is responsible for making the laws. It's like the rule-making body of the government. In many countries, the legislative branch is made up of two parts, a lower house and an upper house. Can you explain a bit more about that, Mason?
Sure thing, Sophia. In a system with two houses, the lower house is often called the House of Representatives or the House of Commons, and the upper house is called the Senate or the House of Lords. Members of these houses are elected by the people or appointed. They discuss, debate, and vote on laws and policies.
Exactly. The legislative branch plays a crucial role in shaping the laws that govern a country. They listen to the needs and concerns of the people and create laws to address those issues. This branch ensures that everyone has a voice in the government.
Right, and sometimes the legislative branch has committees that focus on specific topics like education or the environment. These committees study the issues in detail and make recommendations for new laws or changes to existing ones.
That's correct, Mason. Now, let's talk about the judicial branch. This branch interprets the laws and makes sure they're applied fairly. It's like the referee in a game, making sure everyone follows the rules. The judicial branch is made up of courts and judges.
Exactly, Sophia. The highest court in many countries is called the Supreme Court. It has the final say on legal matters and can review decisions made by lower courts. The judicial branch ensures that the laws are consistent with the Constitution and protects the rights of individuals.
Yes, and the judicial branch also resolves disputes between people, organizations, and the government. For example, if someone believes their rights have been violated, they can take their case to court, and the judges will decide based on the law.
That's right, Sophia. So the three branches of government, executive, legislative, and judicial, each have their own distinct roles and responsibilities. They work together to govern the country effectively and ensure a balance of power.
Exactly. This system of checks and balances prevents any one branch from becoming too powerful. It's like a team where each player has a unique role, but they all work together towards a common goal.
That's a great way to put it, Sophia. And to make this even more engaging, let's share a fun story to illustrate how these branches work together. Imagine a town called Harmonyville ...
Oh, I like this. So, in Harmonyville, the mayor, who represents the executive branch, wants to build a new park. The idea is fantastic, but first, it needs to go through the town council, which represents the legislative branch.
Exactly. The town council discusses the idea, debates the benefits and costs, and then votes on it. They decide it's a great idea, but they want to make sure it's done in a way that benefits everyone in Harmonyville.
Right, so the plan is approved, and construction begins. However, during construction, a problem arises. Some residents believe the park is being built on protected land. They take their concern to the local court, which represents the judicial branch.
And the court reviews the case. They look at the laws and decide that the construction is indeed on protected land. The court orders the town to find a new location for the park that respects the laws and the environment.
Exactly. This story shows how the executive, legislative, and judicial branches each play a crucial role and work together to ensure that decisions are made fairly and legally.
That's a fantastic story, Sophia. It really highlights how the branches of government balance each other and protect the interests of the community.
Absolutely. So, understanding the key functions and branches of government helps us see how important it is for these branches to work together. It ensures that our government is fair, just, and effective.
Now, we're going to talk about how to engage in political conversations. This might sound a bit tricky, but we're going to make it fun and easy to understand. Ready to dive in?
Absolutely, Mason. Political conversations can sometimes be challenging, but they're important because they help us understand different viewpoints and make informed decisions. So, let's start with some basics. What's the first thing to keep in mind when talking about politics?
Great question, Sophia. The first thing to remember is to be respectful. Everyone has different opinions, and it's important to listen and understand where they're coming from, even if you don't agree.
That's so true, Mason. Respectful listening is key. You can learn a lot by hearing different perspectives. It's also helpful to ask questions and be curious about why someone believes what they do.
Exactly, Sophia, and another important tip is to stay informed. Before you join a political conversation, try to learn about the topic. Read news articles, watch videos, or listen to podcasts. This way, you can share your thoughts with confidence.
Absolutely, being informed helps you contribute meaningfully to the conversation. Now, let's talk about a common scenario. Imagine you're at a family dinner, and someone brings up a political topic. What should you do?
That's a great scenario, Sophia. First, take a deep breath and stay calm. Listen to what the person is saying without interrupting. If you have something to add, wait for your turn and share your thoughts politely.
Yes, and it's perfectly okay to disagree. You can say something like, "I see your point, but I think differently because." This way, you're expressing your opinion without being confrontational.
Exactly, Sophia, and remember, it's okay to agree to disagree. Not every conversation needs to end with everyone on the same page. The goal is to share ideas and learn from each other.
That's a great point, Mason. Now, let's role-play a conversation to show how this works. I'll pretend to be your friend who has a different opinion on a political issue. Ready?
Ready. Let's do this.
Okay, Mason, I think that voting should be mandatory for everyone. What do you think?
That's an interesting point, Sophia. I can see why you might think that. Voting is really important. But I believe that people should have the choice to vote or not. Some people might not feel informed enough to make a decision, and that's okay too.
I see what you mean, Mason. You think that having the freedom to choose is important. I hadn't considered that some people might not feel informed. Maybe there should be more education on the importance of voting.
Absolutely, Sophia. Education can help people feel more confident about voting. I think if more people understood how voting affects their lives, they might be more inclined to participate voluntarily.
That's a good point, Mason. So, even though we have different views on mandatory voting, we both agree that education is key.
Exactly, Sophia, and that's the beauty of these conversations. We can find common ground and learn from each other.
Perfectly said, Mason. Now, let's give our listeners some reflective exercises to help them practice engaging in political conversations. Here's one. Think about a political issue that's important to you. Write down your opinion and then write down what someone with a different opinion might say. This helps you prepare for real-life discussions.
That's a great exercise. Sophia, here's another one. Practice active listening. The next time you're in a conversation, focus on really listening to the other person without thinking about what you're going to say next. After they're done speaking, summarize what they said before sharing your own thoughts.
I love that, Mason. Active listening is so important. And for our vocabulary focus, let's go over some useful phrases for political conversations. I understand your point, but I think. Can you explain why you feel that way? That's an interesting perspective. Here's what I think.
Those are great phrases, Sophia. They help keep the conversation respectful and open. And for our practice tip, remember to stay calm and avoid getting too emotional. It's natural to feel passionate about political issues, but staying calm helps keep the conversation productive.
Absolutely, Mason. Political conversations are an important part of being an informed citizen. By practicing these skills, we can all contribute to meaningful discussions and make a positive impact in our communities.
That's right, Sophia, and that wraps up our episode on engaging in political conversations. We hope you found these tips helpful and feel more confident joining these discussions.
Thanks for joining us today, everyone. We hope you enjoyed our conversation and learned something new. Remember, respectful and informed conversations are key to understanding and learning from each other.
Take care, everyone. See you in the next episode.
Goodbye.